He didn't go out in a blaze of glory. There was no last match, no farewell banner, no goodbye. Just a man. Alone. In his car. And the kind of silence football still doesn't know how to talk about. Alan Davies was only 30. A father, a teammate, a gentle soul. He had played for some of Britain's biggest clubs, represented Wales on the international stage, scored in playoff finals, earned fan love wherever he went. But on February 4th, 1992, he was found dead. Suicide by carbon monoxide poisoning. No note, no headlines screaming for help, no warning signs his teammates could see. He left behind a wife, pregnant with their second child. He left behind friends who never got the chance to say goodbye. He left behind a question football still hasn't answered. How can someone so kind be hurting that much? This isn't just a story about goals. It's a story about what we never saw, and what we still struggle to face. Subscribe if you believe football should remember the ones who were forgotten in their silence, because Alan Davies was more than a player. He was a lesson we learned too late. Alan Davies was born in Manchester on December 5th, 1961. But his heart beat for Wales. He wasn't the loudest, he wasn't the biggest, but the moment he touched the ball, people stopped talking. Because he was different. A right winger with intelligence, pace, balance, but more than anything, composure. He didn't waste the ball, he respected it. In an era where flair often came with ego, Alan Davies stood out because he didn't need to shout. And though born on English soil, he would go on to represent Wales at the international level. 13 caps, 1 goal, and the admiration of teammates who knew what the world never fully saw. He played football the way he lived life, quietly, with purpose. And slowly, that purpose led him to the biggest stage of all. For some players, it takes years to find their place. For Alan Davies, it happened in 1987 when he signed for Swansea City. And suddenly, everything clicked. He wasn't just another winger. He became the heartbeat of the team. His runs were sharp, his passes thoughtful, his positioning, silent brilliance. He read the game like someone who didn't need instructions, just grass, time, and trust. In the 1987-88 season, he helped Swansea earn promotion through the playoffs, scoring a key goal, leading the charge when it mattered most. That same year, he was named to the PFA 4th Division Team of the Year, a recognition not just of stats, but of soul. In just 2 seasons, he played 84 league games and scored 8 goals. But the numbers don't tell the full story. Ask anyone in the stands at Vetch Field, they'll tell you he was more than a winger. He was one of them. And for a quiet man from Manchester, Swansea had started to feel like home. But fate had other plans, and the biggest club in Britain was about to come calling. In 1982, Alan Davies signed for Manchester United. The biggest stage. The badge every kid dreamed of wearing. And for a moment, it felt like destiny. He was fast, reliable, intelligent on the ball. He slotted into a squad packed with legends, and he held his own. He even played in the European Cup Winners' Cup semi-final against Juventus, on a night where the lights shined their brightest. He was part of the team that reached the 1983 FA Cup final against Brighton. And even if he wasn't the star, he had earned his place among them. But Manchester United wasn't a place for patience. It was a furnace of pressure, and Alan, despite his talent, couldn't catch the rhythm. Only 7 league appearances, no goals, no real run of games to show the world what he could do. It wasn't failure, it was timing. Too many stars, too few chances. And maybe, a club that never really saw the kind of player he was. Still, he had worn the badge, stood in the tunnel, played on European nights, he had touched the top. But football is a moving machine, and Alan Davies would soon be on the road again, searching not for fame, but for a place where football felt like joy again. After leaving Manchester United in 1985, Alan Davies joined Newcastle United, a club full of energy, noise, and expectation. And for a while, it looked like a new chapter was opening. But again, the rhythm didn't match the talent. He made 21 league appearances but struggled to cement a starting place. Opportunities were scattered. Momentum faded. In 1986, he was loaned to Charlton Athletic. 6 games, 1 goal. A brief spark. Then Carlisle United. 9 more appearances, more hard graft. But Alan wasn't chasing fame. He was just trying to play. By 1989, he signed with Bradford City, a club that offered something else, a familiar face. Terry Yorath, his former manager, believed in him. 26 league games, no goals. But again, steady presence, trusted player. Alan Davies never threw tantrums, never made headlines. He just kept showing up, training, playing, listening, supporting. And then, after all the noise, he went home. In 1990, Alan re-signed with Swansea City. The club that had felt like family was waiting, and he was ready to give them everything he had left. In 1990, Alan Davies came back to Swansea City, the club that had once embraced him and never forgot who he was. This wasn't a comeback for headlines, it was a return for peace. He played 43 more league games, scored 4 goals, and once again became the calm presence in a game that so often forgot its gentlemen. He wasn't chasing stardom. He wasn't trying to resurrect the past. He was just playing for the love of it, for the rhythm of match days, for the people who cheered without condition. The teammates noticed something different. He smiled more, laughed more, led in his quiet way, not with shouting, but with service. He was where he belonged. But even in the warmth of home, there are things we don't see. Storms that brew behind the eyes. Because sometimes the biggest battles aren't against defenders. They're against the silence inside. It was a cold Tuesday, February 4th, 1992. There was no warning, no final message, no slow decline, just a headline the world wasn't ready for. Alan Davies found dead in his car. Suicide. Carbon monoxide poisoning. Just 30 years old. No one saw it coming. Not his teammates, not his family, not the fans who had watched him play with grace and joy. He left behind a young daughter and a wife who was pregnant with their 2nd child. There was no scandal, no farewell letter, just the kind of silence that makes everything else feel small. The football world was stunned. Swansea mourned, Wales wept, Manchester stood still. His friends didn't understand. His manager didn't know what to say. Because this wasn't a career ending. It was a life cut off mid-sentence. A tribute match was held, Swansea versus Manchester United, but it felt like more than a game. It felt like a question no one had the answer to. How could someone so gentle, so loved, be in so much pain? Alan Davies wasn't the kind of man who caused trouble. He wasn't the one yelling in the dressing room or chasing headlines for attention. He smiled. He helped. He played his role, quietly, beautifully, professionally. So when the news broke, his teammates said what so many say after tragedy. We had no idea. He was always laughing. He never showed anything was wrong. And maybe that's the hardest part. The pain wasn't loud. It hid behind kindness, behind humor, behind composure. In 2011, nearly 2 decades later, his name surfaced again during the inquest into the death of Gary Speed. Another Welsh footballer, another life lost to silence. There were whispers, questions, mentions of the pressure inside football, of the era Alan played in, where pain was never allowed a voice, no direct accusations, no confirmed link to the abuse scandals that would later rock the sport. But still, his name lingered in those conversations, because when enough lives end in the same quiet way, we have to stop pretending it's coincidence. Alan Davies didn't ask for help, but maybe it's because no one ever told him he was allowed to. Alan Davies wasn't a superstar. He didn't make the Ballon d'Or shortlist. He didn't lift a World Cup. But ask anyone who shared a pitch with him, and they'll tell you, he mattered. He gave everything to the game, and when the game couldn't give back, he said nothing, and left everything behind. After his death, Swansea City and Manchester United came together for a tribute match, not to mourn a footballer, but to honour a human being. His daughters, Katie and Sophie, grew up without their father, but they grew up fighting for something he never had: awareness, conversation, mental health support. They raised money, they raised their voices, and they turned his story into a message that still echoes: check on the ones who smile the most. Silence is not safety, and even the strongest hearts can shatter in secret. Alan Davies may not have filled headlines in his playing days, but in the end he gave football something far more important: a reason to stop ignoring the quiet ones. Subscribe if you believe the game should remember its gentlest souls, because Alan Davies didn't need to roar to leave a mark. He just needed to be heard before it was too late.